Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of parenting guidelines. And what I mean by that is being a parent, you don't have guidelines. You basically bring a child into the world. You have no instructions. And we're going to talk about that with the queen of pop herself. Welcome to the show.
You are so adorable.
Did I get it right?
This is so much fun being here. Yes, you got it right. There's nothing there's no right. There's no right or wrong. Yes. My name is Janet Krebs, and I oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, and today, I'm going to enjoy the moniker of the Queen of Pop, positive outcome parenting.
Say that one more time, because those are some serious call letters.
Which ones?
What does the Queen of Pop mean? Say that again.
Positive outcome parenting.
So we're here to talk about exactly that. You shared with me something that was real crucial. We bring a child into this world and there is no guidelines. Take the viewers down a little bit about your life and being a parent, and how then we'll get into how you took that part and put it into a moving forward type situation.
Okay. I have tons of stories, but a little bit of a backstory. I remember bringing my first son home, Benjamin, and luckily for me, my daycare provider, but she wasn't working for me yet because the baby was too new, but I was that neurotic mother that had knocked on her door when I came home from the house, or came home from my first ultrasound and said, I'm going to have a baby. I need you to be my daycare, because I was that neurotic. Mm-hmm. Anyway, she lived around the corner from me. Ben is like, he's ill. I have no idea what to do. And I call her. And I was like, Chris, like Ben's got a stuffy nose or whatever it was. And she was like, I was like, I have no idea what to do. She was like, I'll be right over. So I call her. I was like, Chris, I have absolutely no idea what to do with this child. She's like, I'm on my way. I'm living in California at the time, so the front door is open because it's beautiful weather. She comes up the front walk, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? And she said, well, first of all,
well, how old were you again?
Bring it closer to you and give him a hug. That woman saved my entire life because I wasn't alone in that moment. And so my mission, her name was Chris. Part of my mission is everybody should have a Chris, a trusted advisor that knows what to do to help you when you don't know what to do, because of exactly what you said.
How old were you when you had your first child? How old were you?
I was old because, you went there.
I think it's important because,
okay, here's my confession.
If you're super young, is there a difference than being older? Maybe some people might feel like if you're older, you should at least know something about parenting. I could be wrong. You're the expert on this.
Oh, no, actually, I didn't want to be a mother.
Really?
That's my confession. I didn't want to be a mother. I had less than stellar role models.
Take me down that journey real quick.
Okay, real quick. Here's just an example. I was brought up Jewish. So think quinceanera, if you don't know what that is. Think confirmation. Big deal. You turn 13. It's a big deal. You've been studying for like 6-7 years. 5 miles from the synagogue. 5 miles. My mother turns around and says, your father and I are getting divorced.
Wow.
So I know, like, the synagogue is full.
Right.
I'm the star. I'm going to be the cantor, the rabbi. I've been studying for 5 miles from the... Anyway, like, who does that? I'm sorry, who freaking does that? So I ended up living with my father, and try as he might, he did the really best he could. But I did a lot of growing up on my own.
Were there resentments towards your father or your mom during the separation? I mean, you're young and you're traumatized to some degree because, first of all, the Jewish faith is very strong. And to all of a sudden break that and then two separate lives, what was that like for you?
I'm not skirting your question, but here's a better answer. For the purposes of this conversation, I did not even realize that by today's standards, that was considered trauma or the wrong thing, because I don't know about you, I just had my 60th birthday, and we've been brought up that stuff just happened. You were just supposed to suck it up, right? Like, I never even thought twice about it, except back here, I stored it as
Information for the later process?
thank you.
You didn't talk to your mom or dad about it as you got older? Did they
didn't-
see anything emotionally taking place with you? Did anything emotionally take place with
I
you?
didn't realize it until I started diving into this work. Thank you for just poking that bear. No, but that's the truth. I actually had to come to the realization that wasn't a good thing, to just keep it simple. That wasn't a good thing. And to figure out that I had figured out a lot of stuff on my own, and thank God, by the grace of God, I actually did okay. But I reached out to some people who knew better, because I didn't know. I didn't have all the answers. So rule one for a parent, put your ego on the shelf and ask for help.
Let's go back a minute. I think you said something that was really crucial here. So people don't misinterpret the fact that you didn't want kids. You didn't want kids, and I'm just guessing that the reason probably is because you didn't know whether or not the same trauma, which we call now generational trauma, was going to affect you. Am I wrong, or am I just spinballing? As your fear of not wanting to have a child. That's what I want to
could
clarify.
articulate that now, but I think back then, because I had been just before my 30th birthday, or I just turned 30. But back then, that was like a big deal. It was 1992. People were like, what's wrong with you? Like, you've been married 10 years. Why are you not a parent? I didn't want to be a mother. I wanted a childhood. My parents had divorced at 13. I was basically living with my father, who, bless his heart, did the best he could. But I was making some really adult decisions on my own, because he was working. He was doing what he needed to do. And the part of the story I didn't tell you, he got cancer.
Okay.
And then died, and I was 17.
Where was your mom? You lived with your father. Where was your mother? Was it
In
something
town,
that
but I was
they
bitter. I was bitter.
You was bitter at your mom?
Yeah.
Why was you bitter at your mom? Why do you think you was bitter at your mom?
I think at the time, we just didn't get along. We just didn't get along.
Did you get along prior to the divorce?
No, not really.
Okay, so it was
tenuous.
Okay. Did you ever figure out?
That's a really
later?
good question. Did we get along before the divorce? Whew, she's dead now. I can't ask her.
What do you think?
So here's the real answer to that. Back in whatever year that was, 1980? No. He died in 81. Anyway, back then when I was 13, we were given the choice who we wanted to live with. Unprecedented.
You
in
don't get that now.
Pennsylvania. Unprecedented in Pennsylvania.
Okay, I got you.
So 63, 73, so I'm 13, 73, so 76. Unprecedented 1976 Pennsylvania. And so we're in the judge's chambers, and he says, so who do you want to live with? And it's just my sister and I in the judge's chambers. And he asked her first because she was older. And she said, my dad. And the judge looked at me and said, who do you want to live with? And I said, her. Because the thought of dividing the family
I got you.
isn't that so interesting that I was that young that I actually even thought of that? I didn't want to be separated from my sister.
Right.
So I said, I just want to go with her. So it's really interesting that you ask that, because I didn't think about living with her or him. I wanted to live with my sister.
How did your life start to change from that moment on? They separated. And let me share with the viewers where I'm going with this.
I want to know where you're going with this.
My theory, and you can tell me if I'm right before we wrap up your conclusion. I think a lot of it deals with childhood trauma. And I'm going to see if some of this childhood trauma resonates over into the way in which we raise our kids. I'm trying to see if there's a blueprint here to some degree.
Yes.
What was it like now? Your mom is on one side of the tracks. You with your sister. You don't want to separate. Your dad has the responsibility of now taking care of two females.
Yep.
How does your life change? What are some of the good, the bad, and the ugly that you remember at that part of your life?
Well, so remember, so now like 13, and there were just lots of years. Like I said, like we had help, with cooking and cleaning and things like that. So it's not like the house was in shambles and we were never fed. We were very well taken care of. So it wasn't that at the bottom of Maslow's, hierarchy of needs, everything was fine. But I remember, like, I went off to school and, I did my thing, but I wasn't home a lot.
Why?
Well, he wasn't home.
So
I was unsupervised. I was unsupervised. The good news is that I was a good kid. So I didn't get myself into trouble, except I did smoke cigarettes.
Okay.
But I didn't get myself into trouble, like truancy and things like that. I was a good kid. I had a vision for myself, which is maybe even scarier, because it was like, oh my gosh, like I have to do this now. If I'm going to do this, I am going to have to do this on my own.
What were some of the things that you thought was, now that you look back and you go, wow, I can't believe I had to do that, when it was actually the responsibility of an adult to be doing this?
I'm not sure I can answer that, but you know what I can answer? Again, not trying to skirt, but I suspect, man, you are really poking the bear, dude. Which yeah, it's cool, because like this is what we do. I remember when he died, and I remember standing in the synagogue. Mm-hmm. And did you ever watch the jazz singer Neil Diamond?
No.
Okay. Anyway, Jews tear black cloth. They used to tear their clothes, and now they just tear black cloth that you wear. And so they'll tear a ribbon and then pin it on you, kind of like where my pin would be. Mm-hmm. And I remember standing in the synagogue with my sister, and the rabbi tearing the cloth, walking into the service. And I'm 17, 18, one of the two. And I was like, now you're really alone. Now You're really doing it on your own. So in answer to your question, I'm not sure. Like, I think from 13 to 18 was kind of a blur. Trying to get through school and just, graduating and doing the right thing and being in sports and doing all those things. But that was the moment where it was like, holy cow, this is my life right now.
Now what happens?
Now,
What's the first order of operations for you?
college.
Okay. Was there a support cast? Your father's no longer there. Is your mom still alive?
She's alive, but she's been gone for so many years, and that's actually one of my key pillars is connection.
You said she was gone for so many. So your mom never reached back out to
Oh
you?
no, of course she did, but it was, like
Or was the distance
back
so
then-
defragmented that
back then we just didn't do, like, we weren't skilled, and she wasn't adept, and I wasn't adept, and nobody was adept at how to do divorce right. She had her apartment, we had where we lived, and it was strained. It was strained.
how do you maneuver now? Your dad's no longer there. You go to college. Now what happens?
What's the question?
Your father's passed. You realize now that all the defragmentation of your life is clearly defragmented. Now you have to go out there and you got to really navigate for real. At least when
real.
your father was there, he can, I guess, sometimes say no or be there, or your mom
And he
or your older
was.
sister.
He was a great sounding board. He was brilliant.
But now
so-
there is none.
correct.
There's no real communication with your mom. Your sister's a little bit older. You go to college. Now what happens? Now how do you start putting to action your life before we get into the journey of you being a parent?
Figuring it out on your own, which is no bueno. That is no fun. And I think that's really interesting. Thank you. I actually think that right there is the launch. Like, you shouldn't, if you don't know what to do, don't do it alone.
Who did you do it with?
I did it alone. But, well, I did get married young, obviously. I
That's
went.
where I'm going. You
Oh,
got
yeah,
married.
yeah. No, well, I ended up marrying my my high school sweetheart, and we moved to California. And he had issues of his own, too. So there were two young kids making it on their own. Luckily, we were just smart enough to kind of figure this out.
Give me some examples. You go out there, you're young, you get married. Remember, there's no instructions here. No instructions. My theory's about to pan out. I'm telling you.
I can't wait.
Watch. It's about to pan out. Okay, so you go to California. You're both young. And California is big. You got to
Yeah.
at least know something.
Well, he was in the Navy.
Okay, so he's in the Navy, so at
we
least
had
he
a
has a
little
career.
bit. We had a little bit of a safety net.
What was that like being married, your first marriage? Because you still don't want to have any children. Did he thought about having children?
Hell no, I didn't want to have kids. He didn't want to have kids either.
Okay, so you guys on the same boat on that.
We were making this happen. We were like, I was finishing school and I went on to grad school. He was in the Navy. He got out of the Navy, working, like getting jobs, starting careers, all of that. Like the traditional how to make it in the world. Back then, in the 80s, that's what we did.
So you guys were the original Brady Bunch without the kids.
Yeah, no. Just doing it. Just doing the best we could. But it was hard. It was hard.
What do you mean hard? Give me an example of hard. Like a lot of people say hard. Tell me the one moment of that particular journey that you said, damn, I remember this was hard.
Well, how about being 3,000, this is actually a funny story, 3,000 miles away, no support group at all, no support. And for about 3 months, Stephen is his name, would come home and there would be airline information on this makeshift kitchen table, early American garage sale, how we used to furnish things back then. And on the kitchen table would be like all this airline information. Because every day it was I can't do this, I'm going back to Pennsylvania. No support.
What about your husband?
He was at work all day. He was in the Navy. He
was your father, basically, doing the same thing that your father was doing. So now we got some type of trauma going on, but it wasn't called trauma back then. It wasn't in the instruction manual.
That is actually a really good point.
It wasn't in the instruction manual for you to see this flashback in front of you.
No.
Now what happens? Let's move forward. When does the child come in? When does your kids come in?
Okay, so
because this is something you don't want, but now this is happening.
Okay, you will appreciate. I don't know how old you are, but
those files are classified. You don't get instructions on that one.
I was 60. I'm not even embarrassed to admit that. You know how? But you remember when everyone say, and many of your viewers remember this. Don't wait until you're ready to have kids because you're never going to be ready to have kids.
Right.
You know what? That was BS because one day I actually woke up and I felt in my heart that I had enough love to give another human being. I know that sounds so sappy, but it is so true. I couldn't even believe it myself. But it was 10 years into my marriage. But we had a house, and we were solid, and we had, legit jobs. I was like, I have enough love and enough resources, right, that we can do that. I think I want to be a mom.
So before
and I went to Stephen, and I said, I think I want to be a mom. And he said, oh my gosh, I have actually been thinking the same thing. I kid you not. That's a true story. I've never told that story on camera before.
But you said something even more shocking that I like for you to tap on. You said, now I have enough love in my heart. So you was walking around for all this time not loving yourself, I take it, or what we might call an illusion of self-love for yourself, but it really wasn't?
I'm going to say that it had more to do with my bucket was full, and so I had enough now to share. Did we say the same thing?
I like the way you cleaned that up, but okay.
I'm not trying to be contrary.
So your bucket was
I just felt like I was in a better place.
Okay.
And I was solid, which meant I was full, and so now I was in a place where I could give freely.
Okay.
And you are correct. Does that come from a place of lack and all of that? Yes, I apparently it does, but I didn't realize that this is where we were going with this. So.
Hey, you're on the Andre The Beast Crayton show.
Woo!
I'm gonna come
you got that right.
So you wind up agreeing to have a child. You have your child. What's that like? That first child, that first moment.
Well, I failed in that. So we're in California. And the nurse hands me Benjamin, and she says, oh, he's such a beautiful baby. And I said, what? That is not a beautiful baby. That looks like Yoda. And she was like, that's a terrible thing to say. And I said, wait a second. I didn't say I didn't love him. I just said that is not a beautiful baby.
Right.
He will be, but he looked like a Shar-Pei puppy because I'm not the biggest woman in the world, and my babies were very small. They didn't fit their skin.
Okay.
So right out of the gate, I did not win Mother of the Year. But he was wonderful, and he did grow into his skin, and he was a beautiful child, and today is a beautiful human as a 31-year-old man.
What did you have to learn that moment in moving forward? What were some of the key things that you wanted to bring into his life? What were the skill sets that you didn't have, and what were the skill sets that you needed to master? Because once again, the show is about no instructions.
No instructions. And it was about putting my ego, which I believe all parents need to do. It's not about you. Put your ego on the shelf.
Give me an example with a viewer when you say put your ego. So parents can understand.
Ask for help.
Okay.
There is no shame in asking for help. When I called Chris about he's stuffed up, I have no idea what to do. And she said, I'll be right over. And then it was just like, okay, well, let's love him first. And then she gave me, I don't know, whatever it was, Benadryl or whatever it was. And I was ill-equipped. And at that moment, it was like, if you're going to do this with zero experience, I didn't think at the time zero role models, but now I can articulate that, I'm going to have to be willing to ask for help.
During the time that you had your first child, were there classes that showed you how like to breastfeed versus formula, the pros and cons? Were there any type of instructions at all other than here's your baby, I'll show you how to change the diaper?
I'm sure there was, but
did you take part in them?
It's shame, and that's part of my
ego.
That's part of my entire mission. There's shame in asking. Mm-hmm. So we really take it for granted that we're so, like, I'm a woman. I'm supposed to, expectation, social narrative, I'm supposed to know what to do. I'm a woman. If I can have the child, clearly I should know how to raise the child. Doesn't happen.
How many kids you say you have?
I have 2.
So now you know you have all of these, you begin to overcome these obstacles with the first child. Now you have child 2. What's different?
Well, I'll throw you a firecracker. Might be a bomb.
Okay, I'm ready to get blown up.
I actually was pregnant 5 times, delivered 3 babies, and I have 2 living children.
Wow.
Elisa, my daughter, is number 5. So Ben was number 1, and Elisa's number 5. So there was a lot of muddy in the middle. So you want to ask the question differently? Oh, that was fun. When
you had the last child, you had been through misfortunes during that point. You have the child. What do you do differently now? You realize crutches, you need to ask, you need to drop the ego. You know this child doesn't come with instructions. What do you come into the next child with?
The biggest?
Yeah.
In addition to sorry for the finger, I get passionate, sorry.
Go ahead.
In addition to being expected to know what to do and how to do it, you know what people never talk about? Taking them for granted. You just expect. You get pregnant, you have this child, and you know what to do, and everything is hunky-dory. When I lost Jordan, and coming home from the hospital with empty arms is like the worst thing ever.
And you did it several times.
I did. And that was the moment. It was like, you cannot take this for granted. And this child is relying on you to show up, do the absolute best you can, and their future is in your hands to a degree. Like we give ourselves about 20 years to work our magic, mm-hmm. and, strengthen those wings so that they can leave and do whatever it is that they were designed to do. But we just take it for granted. Nobody talks about all of the things that could possibly go wrong.
Let's backtrack a minute before we move forward.
Oh, you love that rewind button.
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Yes, you do.
So let's go back a moment. And on a serious note, you had the misfortunes of losing kids during pregnancy. Did you seek help for your own mental health? Did you seek mental health for yourself? Because that had to be traumatizing to you as well. and still married, still have a child at home, but you also lost some kids. Was your own health mentally in question?
In retrospect,
Yeah.
absolutely. However, I will say, and to this day, and I've told him this many, many times, he knows my son Ben saved my life because he was 2.5 when we lost Jordan. And it was so easy to just not want to get out of bed. And he would find me, crying in a corner on a step stool someplace. And he'd come over in that sweet little voice, Mommy, are you okay? And it was like I had to show up for him. Mm-hmm. So he saved my life.
Moving forward, you had the ups, the downs. You're learning from one child to the next. When did you decide to address this issue, come public like you're doing now, create ways to empower women, to let them become educated? And let me back up a minute so this makes sense. It's not just a program designed for women. Let's clear that out, because my daughter's grown. I know what it's like to be a mom. I know what it's like to be a father. Fathers also need to be able to go at, because I didn't have nobody that I could go to when I had cinnamon. I remember, okay, what do I do here? And I reached out to a friend that came over and showed me. And I remember, being scared to even sleep next to her because I was so big. I was like, if I roll over on her.
Yeah.
But tell me the reason and why you created a get in touch program, so to speak, and tell a little bit more for the viewers.
Couple of reasons. A, we can't take this for granted. B, we only have about 20 years. C, it shouldn't be as hard as we're making it in a world that changes on a dime. Every 5 minutes, there's something else that's a new challenge, a new risk for kids, a new whatever it is. And in all fairness, it's right now, 2023, closing Q4 2023. There's I spent 20 years in education. There's a lot of finger pointing. The kids of today. Well, you know what? We're responsible for the kids of today. I mean, Whitney Houston said it best,
Children are the future?
I believe the children are the future. Okay. There you go. They are.
How much?
And that's us. We are the leaders. We are the role models. We are who they are looking up to. And I promise you, they are begging us. They are begging us to lead them out of all of this every time we turn around. Mental health is at the top of the list. This is a crisis right now, right? Well, I could give you a lot of information about the mental health crisis and how to solve it. And I can promise you the top 3 ways to solve it are right in your home.
Meaning,
the number one reason why kids feel as though they are, they have the number one reason why kids feel like they're in a mental health crisis.
Nobody to talk to. Nobody to trust.
Not being seen and heard. Not being seen and heard. Do you know how easy it is to connect at home so that your child feels seen and heard? Stupid stuff. I used to kiss napkins and put them in my kids' lunch when they were little, so that once during the day, it wasn't like your mommy's here. You know what they did? It was embarrassing, I'm sure, but it made them smile because they know that at some moment I had thought about them.
We talked
Easy connections.
We talked about something before we wrapped up that I want to focus on. When you're dealing with parents and raising their kids, and we know there's no instructions here. how much of this is a repetitive generational cycle? My dad didn't use the words, I love you. My mom did. In certain households, that's forbidden for a man to cry. These generational things come down. So I guess what I'm saying is, from your research, how much of the parenting skills are handicapped by the generational curses and not repairing the generational curses? Maybe that should be a main stay in the instructions. Maybe we need to treat the parent to get over the traumas that they have. Because don't get me wrong, I think we all have the traumas, but you learn, I think we probably have so many traumas in our life that it takes a trigger to bring it out. Then you realize the floodgates open up.
And where we are today, trauma is a huge clearinghouse. Everything gets dumped into the trauma bucket. When you and I were coming up, it wasn't considered trauma.
It was called Suck It Up.
It was called Suck It Up.
Yeah.
Right? It was called the School of Hard Knocks.
Yes, you had to figure out.
It was called all of that. And so I want to honor trauma, but I want to be really careful about using it as an excuse.
Right.
And I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying that the narrative, the conversation, the blueprint that we come from, when we take it away from ourselves and we say, I'm responsible for this 5-year-old, 10-year-old, 5-month-old, whatever it is, and I have a vision for where I want them to get to, and I'm willing to tap into that with awareness. I'm not a psychologist. I've done a lot of research in the last 35 years. So I can talk to it, but I don't want anybody to think that I'm a licensed psychologist. But I think there's a way that we can tap into our experiences and say, that wasn't the most productive way in which we did things. And so if I think about it differently, and I'm willing to think about it differently and get rid of the ego and say, I want the best for this child. And we all do as parents. We should say that. That's a huge disclaimer.
Right.
Every parent out there is the most well-intentioned human walking the face of the earth. And I'm never disqualifying that. I'm just offering some assistance, a blueprint, a foundation, a different way of thinking about things to empower parents to say, you know what? My 3 favorite words. In spite of, this is how I'm going to do things. Those are my 3 favorite words. In spite of. So that's what I do with when you say, but what was that trauma? Was that this? Was that that? Was that hard? Yes. And in spite of, we can do differently.
Yeah, maybe change the narrative instead of saying, well, this is how my dad did it. This is how my mom did it. Instead of saying, maybe it's time to look at the things that didn't work, remove them and change them. How can the viewers reach out to you?
I'm all over some socials. Actually, I'm kind of a LinkedIn, Facebook girl. And just by my name, Janet Krebs, Krebs, janetkrebs.com, or there's a fun download if you want some more information at Raising Independence. So it's ri.janet.krebs or janetkrebs.com. ri.janetkrebs.com. So there's some fun things that you could download there. But just reach out. I mean, and the book is coming out.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We forgot to talk about
there's a book coming out.
Book. Yeah, tell us about the book real quick.
The book is just, I'm using itty bitty publishing because nobody wants to read a long book. So it's kind of like, what other little nuggets do you have going on in there, girl? So I just wrote a short, the manual, not on how to change diapers, but how to stay connected, establish great communication, and just be present.
Leave the viewers with something positive.
We are all raising tomorrow. And we're going to do this. We can do this and have fun, enjoy doing it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another, let me repeat that, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton.
Thank you.
Show.
Thank you.